Welcome to the results conference call for CTEEP for the second quarter 2022. We have here Rui Chamas, the CEO for the company, along with Clarissa Portela, the CFO and IRO for the company, as well as other executive directors of the company. We would like to inform you that this conference call is being recorded and will be made available in the company's site, where you will also find the presentation in English. For those who need simultaneous translation, we have this available in the tool that you will find at the bottom called Interpretation. It is at the bottom right of the screen. Choose the language that you prefer, Portuguese and English. For those who will listen to the conference call in English, you can silence the original audio by using Mute Original Audio. We would like to underscore that the information conveyed in this presentation and the statements made during the conference call referring to outlooks, financial and operational goals of CTEEP are based on beliefs and of the company management, as well as on information that is currently available. These forward-looking statements are no guarantee of performance. They involve risks, uncertainties, and assumptions as they refer to future events and therefore depend on events that may or may not occur. Investors should understand that overall macroeconomic conditions, operating conditions, and others could impact the future performance of CTEEP and lead to results that differ materially from those expressed in these forward-looking statements. After the presentation, we will go on to the question and answer session. Questions should be sent through the Q&A icon at the bottom right of your screen. And please give us your name before posing the question, and the questions will be read by the operator. We will now give the floor to Rui Chamas, the company CEO, who will begin the presentation. You may proceed, sir. Good morning, and thank you for attending the second quarter 22 conference call. My name is Rui Chamas. I am the company CEO, and we have the executive directors here with us to present the results that were posted yesterday and to update you on the main topics of the company. Let's go on to slide number 3. The second quarter of the company had several achievements that endorse our operational strategy in the company. We have 4 points that are fundamental for growth of the company. One was our result in the auction that was held, where we won 2 lots in June, and this represented 25% of the investments made in the auction. Investments made in the period show that this is the second time that we hit a record in the amounts invested. The RAP, the annual allowed revenue, shows that the investments lead to more than 1 billion in our potential RAP for the 22-23 cycle. This will be presented further ahead. There is a project that fills us with pride, which is the Jaguar Parade, where we have raised funds to make people aware on the need to preserve the jaguar habitat. This project has been ongoing with presentations of jaguars in Sao Paulo, and for the first time this will be taken to New York to increase awareness and finally, of course, to generate funds for the preservation of their habitat. This is aligned with a company purpose of developing the Jaguar Parade program, which is the company's main sustainability project. And of course, to create a connection for the jaguars in the corridors in our country. In slide number 4, we will speak about sustainable value generation. we will speak a bit more about the actions carried out in sustainability to show that we're doing the right thing, and the transparency with which we present this will contribute towards a better performance in the company. The company is now part of the Sustainability Index of the New York Times, the FTSE for Good, one of the important sustainability indices in the stock exchange. It is made up of listed companies that are committed with their criteria. We think that this is extremely important, and this is the first time that we are part of this indicator. We have also had a great deal of development in the social part of the company. We have an increase of women in the board reaching 60%. We also have 19% of women in leadership positions and 15% in terms of diversity, as we have training in terms of transaction policies in the first quarter, and we have been able to reach most of the members of our company with this training. We will now go on to slide number 5. We have that idea to be transparent and work with ESG, and here are our governance and ESG indicators for the company. We are a company that since 2019 has improved its footprint. We have a reduction of energy consumed in our offices and facilities. With a return to company work, we have had a significant reduction in the use of energy. We reduced in 32% the losses of SF6, which is a gas with insulating power, but it also hampers the greenhouse effect. We have increased the competitivity of women in the company. And although we have 60% of women in leadership positions, we continue to make strides in the company. As you can see, we have increased the governance with training on policies and anti-corruption in the company to continue on with all of this and sustainable value. Beginning this quarter, we will begin to work with figures that indicate some aspects of sustainability in the company. I will not go into all the details. I have already presented some. I simply underscore that we follow up on the loss of the SF6 insulating gas, which has an important impact on the greenhouse effect. We're also working on the maintenance and streamlining of our equipment, as well as other indicators that you see on this screen. We will continue to present these indicators to guarantee that we will be able to make strides in this. Let us go on to the next slide. Our wins in the June auction are thanks to the important work of our team. We are working with sustainable and responsible works. This represents more than 1,000 kilometers of transmission circuits and an increase in the megawatt amperes in our transmission network. They are located in the southeast in Minas, Espírito Santo, and another in Sao Paulo, with an estimated capex of 3.9 million reais, representing 25% of the investments made in this auction. We have built a model for this auction, and it's important to mention that the hedge contracts to mitigate exchange rates have already been signed. We were able to reduce the annual capex, and this track record shows us a historic reduction of 24%. Our history shows us a reduction of 5 months in terms of anticipation when it comes to the annual term. We have presented an EBITDA margin between 90 and 95%, and the leverage that we estimate in our projects is of 80% by using funding, always supporting ourselves on the very best funding available at the time. This, of course, also includes infrastructure, debentures, and other solutions that will be developed by our financial group, keeping in mind our capital structure. Most of the investment in the Greenfield projects is being done in the third year of construction. 15% for 23, 50% for 2025, and we will have a residual value to be made in 2026. We have called these two lots as Piraqué, lot number 3, and Jacaranda project, lot number 4. The Piraqué project is between Minas and Espírito Santo with a potential RAP of 269 reais, and the maximum term of construction are 60 months. And we will continue to anticipate RAP for this in the Jacaranda project, lot 6. This is in the state of Sao Paulo with a potential RAP of 13 million and 203 million in ANEL RAP. Based on the presumed profit system, and this will help us to have an interconnection with some of our projects, and the term offered here is 42 months without the possibility of anticipation. Let us go on to slide number 7. Now, the June auction works hand in hand with our trajectory. We will increase our RAB by 6.5%, and we will have more than 1,000 kilometers of transmission line, 350 megavolts ampere of capacity. We will go on to the next slide to speak about our investments. Here you see the evolution of our investments in Greenfield and retrofitting projects. We continue to grow the pace of investments on these two fronts. This will translate into revenues and margins as soon as the projects are concluded. The growth in the second quarter was 39%, accumulating 70% of what was invested last year. Besides investment in Greenfield projects, which will be done through new concessions that are bid. We're working on the streamline and of the existing assets, and in Sao Paulo, we're reinforcing our improvements. In the graph to the right, you see a longer evolution in retrofitting. In 3 years, we had a growth of 66% in CAGR. In 2022, we invested 300 and some million in this, an increase of 136% in investments vis-à-vis 2021, and much higher than what was invested in 2022.
Investments in improvements. They are part of our contract for renewable energy for the state of São Paulo, considering authorizations, and they are compensated by an additional RAP, and they also make it possible for us to reduce our operation and maintenance costs. Now moving to slide number 9, we are going to see our Greenfield projects. So as we said before, this year in 2022, we have already energized 3 projects that were being constructed: Aimorés, Três Lagoas, and Paraguaçu. Paraguaçu, as we announced day before yesterday, Aimorés and Paraguaçu, they are in partnership with Taesa. We are estimating that we are going to have 6 new projects energized along 2022. So the total of 6 projects are going to increase our RAP by more than 420 million BRL. As you have seen on the chart above, in addition to the 3 energized projects, we have another 3, one in partnership with Taesa, and 2 other individual projects, Itaúnas and Biguaçu. Additionally, we have another 2 projects that we bought in late 2019, Triângulo Mineiro and Minuano, that have started the phase of more intensive investment, resulting to a higher investments in Greenfield projects that we saw in the previous slide. Now moving to slide number 10, in early July, ANEEL published a resolution defining the new revenues for ISA CTEEP for the 2022 cycle that will be applicable for the 22-23 cycle. The chart shows the effects that drove our potential RAP for more than 4 billion. The main positive effects were the update of contracts by inflation, new projects going live with improvements, the partial recomposition of our of what we have received in our BSE and the RAP of the two lots that we won in the June auction. So this is represents 60% of the revenues coming from our renewed contract 059, 23% of the contracts already bid will go live in the next few years. Now, I would like to give the floor to Carisa Portela Cristal, our CFO and IRO, who's going to go into the financial details for the second quarter of 2022. Carisa, please. Thank you, Rui. Good morning, everyone. I start my presentation on slide 11. This quarter, the positive update of IPCA over the RAP for the cycle 2022, the go live of improvement projects and Greenfield projects too, and a lower amount of adjustment installments, all these items related to our recurring operation have offset a significant share of the impact of the RBSE at changes. So this is something that we mentioned for the tariff cycles of 21-22 and 22-23. And in this manner, our total net revenue totaled 733 million BRL. So if you look at the net revenue chart, you can note that the XRBSE revenue is growing. We should mention that our continuous pursuit for efficiency and expense management has made it possible for us to have a PMSO for the second quarter of 2022 to grow 9%, which is lower than inflation in a period for which the IPCA was 11.9%. As a result, EBITDA total 555 million BRL in Q2 22, with a reduction of 12% as compared to Q2 21. And the EBITDA margin was 75.7%. During this quarter, ISA CTEEP's net income was also affected by increase in financial expenses resulting from the changes in the macroeconomic scenario, with an elevation of indicators which determine our debt. The adjustment of 22-23 RAP cycle, as Rui mentioned, that will be booked as of July 23, had an addition of 664 BRL million for projects under operation, totaling a new RAP of more than 4 billion, in which contemplates the inflation for the last 12 months so that we can bear any financial variations. In this manner, we ended the quarter with a net income of 74 million BRL. Now on slide 12, please. We end the quarter with a net debt of 8 billion, 200 million BRL higher than the previous quarter. This growth is explained especially by the correction of debt balances and by macroeconomic indicators, which index our debt with concentration on IPCA and CDI. In April this year, we have completed our 12th issuance of debentures amounting to 700 million BRL, and these funds were invested in the recomposition of the cash to bear the growing volume of investments and the settlement of debts that matured in this period. This fundraising is in line with our management practice, replacing a more expensive debt, and so that we can have a longer debt profile. Currently, our average debt time for maturity 7 years. Net debt EBITDA was 3.25 times when we closed the second quarter. We have good prospects in terms of our operating cash, which will continue to evolve with energization of Greenfield projects and improvement projects, and also with a recomposition as we receive the RBSE. The company is always assessing the current capital structure and opportunities for growth with the objective of maximizing the generation of value to our shareholders. Now I end my presentation and give the floor back to Rui. Thank you, Carisa. I thank you very much for your interest in the presentation of the second quarter results of our company. And I would like to emphasize our values. So our environmental, social, and corporate governance values that are very solid. We will continue to pursue growth with improvement projects for renewable energy and also for Greenfield project, strong cash generation, operational efficiency in the maintenance of our current assets, and also our policy for the payout of dividends with a minimum payout of 75% of the company's regulatory net income and profitability in a sustainable way, and also innovation and safety that are paramount to us, and which is confirmed by the investment grade that has been awarded to us by the rating agencies. For Brazil, in the case we have Fitch classifies us as AAA. So thank you very much once again for your attention. And now, together with the team, we are now available to start our Q&A session. Now we are going to start our questions and answer session. We kindly request you to say your names and to ask all your questions in one time. So now we are waiting for your questions. As a reminder, if you want to ask a question, please click on the Q&A icon on the lower menu on the screen and post your question. Our first question comes from an investor, Arthur Salles, and it is the following. Good morning. Considering RBSC issues, recomposition, and annual recalculation, what about the payout of dividends for 2022? Good morning, Arthur. Thank you for your question. And so what we have here to mention that is very important is that the recomposition of RBSC, when we look back at our initial agreement, in truth, it acknowledges a right of the company that adds to our cash flow 1.8 billion, and it delays these payments. So when we look at that, so we see a positive impact for the company's result, which will have a positive reflects on the payout of dividends. But this is in agreement with the flow that we forecast for RBSC, so that the company will keep its practice for the payout of dividends at a minimum of 75% of the regulatory net income. Thank you very much for your answer. Our next question comes from the investor, Fernando Yuhais. Please, could you explain better what is the objective of the renegotiation of the debentures that recently took place? Hi, Fernando. Thank you for your question. Well, in fact, some of you who monitor the market, you must have heard that recently, and more specifically last year, we renegotiated the covenants for our debentures. So this waiver was focused especially on an alignment with our growth strategy. Those of you who are monitoring us more closely, our aim in this renegotiation is for the company, whenever we have significant investments above a pre-established equity value, then we have some room and some more flexibility for our covenants and our financial obligations. So this is very much in line with the acquisition of a new business, which will start to generate revenue for the company. And so we have a scenario. The company is not going through any difficulty or seeing an over leverage. What we really want is to have the possibility of being able to take part in any business to any M&A opportunity that might come along. It's also important to say that this flexibility for the covenants has a window, a pre-established window, so that we are going to go back as time goes by to its original state. Thank you for the answer. Our next question comes from the buy-side analyst, Fabio Iobi. There are 3 questions. We are going to read them now. Question number 1 is, I would like to know what was the main reason for you to reduce the EBITDA and profit as compared to Q1 21? Question number 2, what is going to be the payout of dividends in the second half of 2022? Is it still going to be 75% of the net income? Question number 3, what is the expected reduction of the net debt for the second half of 22 and first half of 23? And what about leverage? Hi, Fabio. Excellent question. So let's separate answer each question at a time. So I'll try to answer in the order. So when we say the why there was a reduction, we had lower EBITDA and net income. We have been saying for a while and since last year about this recomposition. So this recomposition it acknowledges the company's right to update our RBSE receivables that were in backlog, and at the same time as Anil does that, it delays payments. So there is a trough in payments that is good for 24 months. So these changes entered in effect in July 21. And then after July 22, if you remember, and you see the chart that Rui showed in a presentation talking about our RAP with a cycle adjustment that will come into effect in 23, there is a column of about 209 million where we see a recomposition of part of the RBSE, but this is going to take place only after July 23. So when we look at the last 12 months, in fact, there has been a significant reduction in our RBSE receivables. And when we compare to the same period in 2021, back then we were receiving RBSE. So this is one of the main reasons why we are seeing a reduction in RBSE and in the company's net income this quarter as compared to the same period last year. In addition to that, especially in talking about net income, there has been a strong impact of financial expenses. And this is because even though the level of debt this quarter is very similar to last year, the macroeconomic rates of our debt that determine our debt, and the main ones are the IPSA and CDI, they went up this in a period, and this generated higher financial expenses for the company. That's why this is impacting our results. Now, on your question about dividends, in the second half this year and first half next year, I'm going to repeat what I have already said. The company is going to keep its practice and its policy of dividend payout of the minimum of 75% of the regulatory net income. And you should be reminded that we have a schedule. So for now, we are not announcing anything, not making any proposals, but we will do that before the end of the year in compliance with those policies, okay? And I think that your last question was, if I'm not mistaken,
Your last question referring to leverage. When we look at our debt. And we do have a slide in our presentation, slide number 12, if I am not mistaken. You see the schedule for the payment of dividends and amortization of debts. In the years 2022 and 2023, the payouts will be highly aligned with what we had foreseen. There will not be any significant disbursements during that period. As I mentioned very shortly, we're working on the recomposition of the RBSE. Beginning in 2023, we will achieve this. Beginning in July of 2022. And in 2023, we will have a better regulated RBSE. This will increase our EBITDA and remove the pressure that we have on leveraging that we have at present. The company is now undergoing a period of investment and strong growth. All of this, once again, highly aligned with the increase in growth of the company. We have mentioned this, and Rui referred to this in his presentation. We have had a historic quarter in terms of investments, as mentioned before, and we can expect this for the coming quarters as well. Thank you for the answers. Our next question comes from the investor Antonio Rodriguez. The question is the following: which is the justification for the relevant increase in the financial expenses of the company between the first quarter of 22 and the second quarter? The net debt is flat, the IPCA has dropped, but the expenses have increased over and beyond the Selic. Well, to respond to your question, Antonio, what is it that we have perceived? We are comparing the first quarter when we look at the debt. And what are we comparing there? The first quarter of 21 and the first quarter of 22. When we look at this period, the IPCA during the period increased 11%. And despite any type of comparison, there has been a growth in IPCA during the period, and this is the reflex of this. Our debt is 55% indexed to the IPCA and about 40% indexed to the CDI. Now, this growth, of course, is a reflection of this. And the company continues to work with the same level of indebtedness, which is of approximately 8 billion. I would like to remind you that this debt of the company is highly aligned with our growth expectations, and it will allow the company to make its investments. We made investments of 900 million in this first half of the year. And of course, all of this accompanies the growth that you observe elsewhere. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Our next question comes from the sell-side analyst, Alexandre Kogage. We have two questions here. The first question is the following: if you could please remark on the monocratic decision of ANEEL and the decisions discussed in terms of RBSE. The second question: projects that came in late and that can delay, what is happening with ANEEL when it comes to the exclusion of penalties because of this? Well, thank you for the two questions. I'm going to begin with the question about the RBSE and the monocratic decision. This is a decision that suspended the resolution of 2017. Now this resolution stands suspended. Now the discussions on RBSE initially were somewhat troublesome. We're now seeing that they are being treated in a more adequate way, and very publicly we have stated that the RBSE in 2021 was defined in the second instance that was favorable to the companies. There is no third instance. This does not exist, and therefore it should not be altered. And what we have now is the agency that will begin to deliberate, and we believe that they will make their decisions based on the law. Now, what is delayed in terms of responsibility, and we are interacting with the regulator regarding this, is to present the elements should they exist, especially in issues that are linked to what happened pre-pandemic and that define the proper uh, dose that should be applied to these projects. We don't believe that this should be applied to projects that could be delayed, but notwithstanding this, the projects are aligned with our expectations. Thank you for the answer. Our next question comes from the investor Paulo Sergio, and the question is the following. Good day. Congratulations for your acquisitions in the last auction. I see a very promising future. If the issuance of debentures and the payment could hamper your performance, and which would be the impact on your future results? Hello, Paulo, and thank you for the question. Allow me to explain to you how we get ready to participate in these auctions. We work with a business plan that takes into account quotes with suppliers for our projects, everything that will be invested in the pre-operational part and what will be spent once the project comes into operation. We also include all of the resources that are necessary to fund this, resources from third parties or from our own capital. You are asking about the issuing of debentures. In this business plan, we have also seen which will be the volume to obtain date or other attractive funding sources, and everything based on the background and the credit that is available. Now, all of this is included in our business plan that backs up our decisions to participate in the auction or not. Now, we estimate a real profitability rate of 2 digits for the shareholder thanks to this last auction in June. Of course, this will have an impact when it comes to generating value for future results. Well, thank you for the answer. Our next question comes from the investor Gustavo Roberto Correa, and the question is the following. Good day. Which is the value of reinforcements and improvements authorized by ANEL? Good morning, and thank you for the question. The company has 2.9 projects of reinforcements and improvements authorized between the year 2022 and 2026. 3.6 million will be executed. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the answer. Our next question comes from the investor Antonio Moraes, and the question is the following. Regarding the CEMIG part, referring to TAISA, as TAISA is preferential, do you have any novelties? And is ISA interested in acquiring that part? Well, thank you for the question. This seems to be a recurrent question. I would like to reinforce that ISA is the controlling company for TAISA, and ISA is entitled to preference if the share will be sold out, but this is something that is out of the control of the CTEEP management. Thank you for the question once again. And I'm sorry not to be able to have a more precise question as this is not part of our reach. Thank you for the answer. We would like to remind you that should you wish to pose a question, please write out your questions in the Q&A icon at the bottom right of your screens. We're going to wait for a few more minutes while we await some questions. As we have no further questions, we will end the question and answer session at this point. We would now like to give the floor back to Rui Chamas for the company's closing remarks. Thank you for your interest in our results presentation, and thank you for the very important questions. When I look at the chat, we think that we have answered some of the questions, but should you require more information, please speak with our IR team so that we can offer you a more precise response. Thank you once again for your interest. We continue to develop the company aligned with operational efficiency, responsibility, and an ambition for growth and to consolidate the company results. All of this based on a platform of social and environmental value. Once again, many thanks. Have a good weekend. And please, the IR team is at your entire disposal should you have any additional doubts. Thank you very much. The results for the second quarter 2022 for ISA CTEEP ends here. The IR department is at your disposal to answer any further questions you may have. Thank you very much and have a very good day.